Kids, let's talk about the stairs because we got to do some stairs for the patio. A couple different ways you can frame these out. The mainstay way is with stringers. So this is a stair stringer. It's made out of a piece of 2x12. This piece down here, it's called your level cut, your bottom level cut, and it's going to set down on your floor or wherever the stairs start. This is your bottom plumb cut, and this is going to be what's your first riser. So the risers are here, your treads are here. So this is the surface you're going to step on, and basically this is the fundamental frame of your stair. You're going to have more than one of these, at least two, and depending on how wide your stairs are or the kind of materials you're using for the treads, they're generally going to be, so in this instance we're using composite, very flexible, it's thin, it needs, based on the manufacturer's recommendations, a stringer every 12 inches or 12 inches on center. You could do 16 inches on center for other types of decking. In a house, it all just depends on what you're putting down on it, but generally those are going to be framed out more rigidly, and they may even have plywood setting on top of this before you actually have the finished tread on top. And you're probably not going to want these to be any more than a couple of feet apart. But for our purposes, we're using Trex composite decking. We're going to have to space these 12 inches on center, which means we need 7 of these. We're going to talk about how to mark these out and cut them. You can buy these pre-made at a lot of hardware stores and big box places like Lowe's. They're generally going to have one set of dimensions. Your riser on those is probably going to be like 6.5 inches. I think the tread is something like 10. That's not always going to work for your space because there's a lot of things to take into consideration. It works for some stuff, and it's probably the easiest way to handle this situation. But let's talk about laying these out and how to decide what your riser and your tread and all that are going to measure out to. Let's do it. I think we've probably covered this before. I don't remember, and I think it's worth covering on its own. So we need to make a real small set of stairs from the patio up to this double door into the house. So we need to lay these out to get them started. And what we need to know is, what is the height to the bottom of this door seal or up to the door seal to the patio? Well, it happens to be 29 inches, which makes us very lucky because 29 inches is easily divisible by 7 1/4. Why does that matter? Well, you want your rise, this dimension right here, to be generally less than 7 3/4 inches. I believe that's the code. Obviously, that's going to vary place to place. Look it up. Don't listen to me. But 7 1/4 is going to be a good rise, a comfortable step up. We're going to be able to remain consistent with that measurement because you want consistent rises. Few quarters of an inch off or whatever is not a big issue, but if you go from a 5-inch step to a 7-inch step, you're going to stumble going up these or down. So we got a 29-inch height that we have to cover, which works out perfectly and gives us the ability to do a 7 1/4 inch rise. So then we got to figure out the tread, which is this dimension right here. I think the code is like 10.5. I'm not sure. My experience, like an 11-inch tread or so is pretty comfortable. Feet's not going to be hanging off the back. And we're using this Trex decking, which happens to be about 5.5 inches wide. And if we cut a tread that's 11 inches on the stringer, that allows me to put 2 of these down with proper spacing and have a 1/2 inch nose on the end here. So we're going to cut these at 11, and we're only going to cut 3 steps. Why are we only going to cut 3 steps? Well, I want to limit how much space I'm occupying on the patio in this direction. if I cut 4 steps and have, a step out here flush with the bottom of the door seal, it would probably be more comfortable, but that's going to mean that my stair stringers are going to extend out roughly 48 inches or a little less. I guess it would be 44 inches. Yeah. So we're going to cut that down a little bit, and we're just going to make 3 stairs. So basically, our last step is going to stop here right around 7 1/4 inches from the base of the door seal there. So we'll have 3 steps, and that will only occupy 33 inches in this direction and take up less of the patio. All right, so that's our basic math. We got a rise, kind of roughed in the run there and allowed for a good, comfortable tread. Let's talk about laying these out on the stock. So for basic stair stringers, you're going to use 2x12 material. Why? I don't make the rules, kids. That's what they decided is the most structurally sound. So just use 2x12. Another thing that you might want to consider is your crown. So if you look down these edges of your board, you're going to find that one or the other of them bows outward. You can barely see, but there is a little bit of an inward curve on this one, or a little concavity. Over here, just slightly convex. So you could probably call this a crown, and you want this to be facing upward. So over time, any pressure on it's pushing that down and not exacerbating an already concave area. Anyway, look at your crown. You won't die if you don't, but it's just something to consider. All right, so when it comes to laying these out, you're going to want a framing square. So framing square, got this big long piece called the body, this shorter piece called the tongue. Now these little brass knobs are something you're going to buy extra, generally aren't going to come with these. They can be used for laying out stair stringers, and you're basically just going to screw them on with this little flat surface on your marks or your measurements for your tread and your riser cuts. Another way you can do this, if you don't have those little brass blocks, I'm sure most of you got something with a straight edge and a couple of clamps laying around. In this instance, a level. And you're just going to line the edge up again with your measurements for your tread and your riser. And they work in a similar way, pretty much the same way. You're going to push these up flush against the top or crown of your stringer material, make your marks along the outer edges, and this is where you're going to cut. Now, in my opinion, one advantage of doing it this way is when you get all the way to the end, you may want to flip this over and use it to make a plumb cut. But when you come down here, you can see you're levering off the end of the board. That's not helpful. But that's the benefit of having this flat edge on there, is it's not going to happen to you. You can line that level or whatever you're using for a guide up, and you're not going to swing off the edge. So basically this is how it's going to play out. You're going to put your guide on the crown or the top side of the stringer material here, and just make your marks. So make sure you're staying flush up against the board with your guide, and draw your pencil marks on the outer edges of the square. That's your first step. So we've got the body, which is the long side here, that we're going to use to measure the first tread. Now you don't want to come all the way down to the end and measure down here, because you need space in here to leave for your bottom plumb cut, your bottom level cut. So we'll leave a few inches there, and Mark our first tread and riser. And then we're going to continue this process all the way down. So as we go on to the next one, we're going to line up our 11-inch mark here with the end of our line on our first riser right here. And the same thing down here. Now, this is the part where I feel like using a straight edge like this level makes it way easier. Instead of having the little brass knobs on there. So we need our first riser here to be 6 1/4 inches. So I'm moving my straight edge along the face of the board until I get the 6 1/4 mark lined up with the line of my first tread there. And I'm just going to mark down here. So then we'll flip this over, come down here, and we're going to continue that line all the way to the other edge of the board. And then we'll flip it back over like so and connect those. So then what we have is the line to make our bottom plumb cut and the line to make our bottom level cut there. Now on the end, to make our top plumb cut, we'll do something very similar. Just turn our square around, line it up with what would technically be the next tread or riser, and just continue that line down the edge of the board. And this gives us our top plumb cut right here. So now we're going to cut all these chunks out. You're going to start with your circular saw and follow these lines. And when you meet in the corners, don't cut all the way through to make the circular saw cuts meet. It's going to weaken your stringer. You're going to have these little tabs left over. Use a handsaw or a jigsaw on it or something. Don't use a jigsaw on these. Unless you're some phenom that you can cut a perfectly straight line and not wander all over the place, fine, go ahead. But otherwise, use your circular saw here. You can use your jigsaw down here. I tend to wander a lot with them. It's just as easy for me to stick a handsaw in there and cut those off in like a few seconds. But that's the basic layout. Let's cut this thing out. Got the siding stripped away here. We're going to start setting these stringers underneath the door here. So let's see if we can zoom in, and we'll just kind of talk about how we're aligning this first. So I'll use my level against the door frame, the door jamb itself, not the siding, and get this sort of aligned along that plumb line. We're going to check against our risers here. They look relatively plumb. It's not super level in this direction. The slab is not going to be level because it slopes gradually out and it's stamped. So you get as close as you can. Ideally, you don't want it sloping into the house, especially if this is not covered, because then water tends to run toward your house and not away from it. Then we confirm our measurements here. From the top to the bottom of the door seal is 8.5 inches. By the time we add an inch for our materials on top, the decking, we're going to come up to about 7.5 inches. And the rest of our steps are 7.25. So that's good. That's close. You can use joist hangers on here, which would probably be the ideal way. I got enough exposed on the skirt board here. We got 4.5 inches. You can toenail that in. It's plenty secure. They do make hangers for these. So we're just gonna, I made a mark along each side here just so I know I'm staying aligned as I'm toenailing this in, but that's what we're gonna do first. Bottom level cut, bottom plumb cut, top plumb cut. Top plumb cut's going to go up against your ledger, skirt board, whatever you want to call it. Looks good there. Alright, that looks good. So we're going to put the rest of these up, 12 inches on center all the way down the middle there. Snap a little chalk line here, so we got something to align the top with. The top tread. Looks good, kids. All right. So we got to make some bracers. Basically, pieces of 2x material to go between each stringer. Attach those to it and use that to attach it down to the slab. And I'm really hating the idea of drilling holes into this patio. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. Those are in, so we got to put a few tap cons in some of those to secure this to the patio, to the slab. before we get ahead of ourselves and get too crazy with that, we need to make sure we're sitting square with the wall. Doesn't look bad there. Make a little mark. Now we can drill for our tap cons. Put those in. I think 3 is going to be plenty. Those aren't going anywhere. Well, we were going to finish these, but Lowe's is apparently out of the material I need to wrap them. I spent like an hour and a half, myself and one of the Lowe's crew members trying to find it. Apparently it's not there, so we'll just have to order it. But I think you get the gist of it. Just about anybody can wrap this. You're just going to put boards on there and nail it. But we'll show that when I get the materials. So the stringers are in. I got to get this siding back up. Is that the right way to do it? I don't know. Is it the perfect way to do it? Guarantee it isn't. But it works. The stairs in my house still work. No one's fallen through them or died yet. So, hey, you know what? Take it with a grain of salt. But this is the idiot's approach. Whatever.